Hey everyone, and welcome to Style with Chica. In this tutorial, I will be sharing with you how to draft a corset pattern with already made bra cups. With me here, I have my bra cups, the pair in my size. Just go ahead and get yours in your size. So let's get started. So first, I'm gonna have to fold my pattern paper in two. Now I'm going to start off with my shoulder line. For my shoulder line, I'm going to be making a straight line at the border of my pattern paper. So this is going to be my shoulder line. Next, I am going to take my shoulder measurement and I'll be dividing my shoulder measurement by 2. I'll be marking that out on this shoulder line. After this, I am going to come down by half of an inch to create my shoulder slope. Then I'm going to connect the way upward. To connect the way upward, you want to first of all mark your standard neckline measurement. For my standard neckline measurement, it is 3. If you're on the bigger side, it's 3.5. So now that I've marked that there, I'm going to connect this point all the way to this one to create my shoulder slope. After creating my shoulder slope, I am going to create my armhole line. For my armhole line, I'm going to divide my bust measurement by 6 plus 1.5 inches. My bust measurement divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches gives me 7.6 inches. I'll be marking 7.6 inches this way. Then I'm just going to use my straight ruler to connect upward like this. So after connecting to meet my shoulder, I will mark this line this way. The next line I'm going to be marking out is my bust line. So your bust line is your shoulder to where you have your nipple. My shoulder to where I have my nipple, I'm going to be using 10.5. Then I'm going to mark out my shoulder to my under bust at 14 inches, which is my shoulder to the under of my breast. And then I'm going to mark out the half length of this pattern at 17 inches. Okay, so I'm just going to increase this to 22 inches. So if you're cutting a gown with a corset, you can use your half length. And if you're cutting a top, I'm just going to extend it to 22 inches to make this understandable to everybody watching. So I'm going to extend these lines this way. Next, I'm just going to take my nipple to my nipple measurement. My nipple to nipple, one nipple to the other is 8 inches. So I'm going to be dividing my nipple to nipple measurement by 2. Go ahead and divide your nipple measurement by 2. And then I'm just going to be marking that out on my under bust line, on my waistline, and on my full length line this way. This is 4 inches here, 4 inches here, and 4 inches here. I'm just going to go ahead and use a straight ruler now to connect upward like this. So after this, I'm going to take my dart on my waistline. So my dart on my waistline, I'm going to be going out by 0.75 inches on both sides of my waist. If you're not very busty, use half of an inch. If you're just like me, my bust measurement is 36, you can use 0.75. If you're on the bigger side, you can go as much as 1 inch. So I'm going out by 0.75 inches on both sides of my waistline. So from this point, I also go out by 0.75 inches on both sides of my full length line. And once I've done this now, I'm just going to connect from this point all the way down like this. So now that I've done this, from this point here, I am going to come in by half of an inch. From my bust point here, I'm going to come in by half of an inch. And on my under bust point, I'm going to come in by half of an inch. I'm just going to connect with a straight line all the way down like this. So from this point now, I'm just going to take one of my bra cups like this, and I'm going to be placing the edge of my bra cup here on this point, and then I'm going to make sure that everything sits perfectly like this. So now I want to trace out the cup shape of the cup piece. So to do that, you have to pinch your cup a bit. If you're not pinching it, it's going to be flat, and when you wear your clothes, it's not going to fit very well. So you have to pinch it a bit because this is space that your bust is going to sit in. So when I pinch that, I'm just going to make sure that I hold that in place like this. So after I do that now, I'm just going to go ahead and carve out the shape that I have here. So when you're carving this out, just make sure that this is not moving around. So when I remove it, this is what I have. Okay, so after I've done that now, I'm going to take my bust measurements and I'll be dividing my bust measurements by 4, and I'm going to be marking that out on my bust line. My bust measurement divided by 4, I'm going to mark that out on my bust line. I'm going to add an allowance of 1.5 inches. Then on my waistline, I will divide my waist measurement also by 4. Then I am going to add an allowance of 1.5 inches. If you want your corset to be snatched at the waist, do not replace your dart. If you do not want your corset to be snatched at the waist, you're going to replace your dart that you have here plus your sewing allowance. So because I want this waist to be very snatched, I'm not bothering to replace my dart. Okay, so on my full length line now, I'm going to mark my hip measurements divided by 4. But then on my hip line, I'll be replacing the dart that I have here, and I'll still be adding an allowance of 1 inch to it. 1.5 inches, sorry. So now from this point here, from this point, I'm going to connect to this point to this point. Then on my armhole line here, I'll also transfer my bust measurements to my armhole line here. So all I have to do now is to connect these points together like this. So now first of all, I'm going to mark out my original measurements with this one. But then I'm just going to mark out my allowance using the blue marker so you can see the difference. Okay, so you can see what I have here. This is going to help me to snatch my waist. So now that I have this, I'm going to complete this cup piece like this. I'm just going to create a little armhole by doing this way. So at this part here, I am going to add an allowance of 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch is what we use to join the cup piece to the main bodies after sewing. Okay, so you're just going to add an allowance all around like this. Alright guys, so now this is what I have for my corset pattern with already made bra cups. So when I fix this in with the allowance I've added here, this is what it's going to look like. Okay, it's going to be curved this way. So now I'm just going to go ahead and cut this out. Alright guys, so now I'm just going to go ahead now and cut out the dots. Alright guys, so now this is what I have. So I only went ahead to cut this out so you can see where you're going to take your dart from. Okay, so when you're cutting this out on your main fabric, do not cut out your dart. Okay, so now this is what it looks like when I open it up. So when you take your dart now, I'm just trying to show you what it's gonna look like. This dart you take is going to make the waist look more snatched, and it's going to make the cup come out even more. So this is what it looks like. Okay, but when you are cutting it out, do not cut out your dart. All right, this is just for an illustration. So this is what I have for the front part of my corset. So for your back, you can either decide to use a corset loop or a zipper. So I'm going to teach you how to use a corset loop. So you're going to take your front piece. I've taped my dart together again. Okay, you're going to take your front piece now and you're going to place it directly at where you have your starting line here. Okay, there's no allowance because there's no zipper there, so all you just have to do is to trace it out first of all. Alright, so once I've traced this out now, I can then take off this piece because I have my body measurements on this one already. So first of all, I'm just going to start by determining the neckline. For the neckline now, I do not want it to be too high, so I'll come down by 2 inches at this point, and then I will just connect to slant this point like this. Oh, sorry, this was a mistake. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut it out like this. So next, I'm going to take my dart. So for my dart is my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2 again, which is 4 inches here. I'm going to mark 4 inches all the way down like this. And after I've done this, I'm going to be using my red marker now because this blue dot, I don't want it to be confusing you guys. So after I've drawn this straight line now, on my waistline, which is here, I'm going to come in by 1/2 inch on both sides of my dart. Okay, both sides of my nip of this line. Then I'm just going to connect upward like this. I'll also do the same thing to this side. Then I'm going to connect downward like this, and I'll do the same thing to this side. So because it's the back, I do not want this to be straight like this, so I'm just going to go ahead and curve it upward like this again. So this is if it's a top. So if yours is a gown, you can just go ahead and leave it straight, or according to the length of your gown, the style of your gown. Okay, so now this is what I have for my dart at this point. So because it's a corset loop, what I'm going to do is that at this point, I'm going to come in by 1 inch. And when I come in by 1 inch, I'm going to connect the way downward like this. So this side of my corset has a little opening, V-like opening to it. So after I have cut this out, the next thing I'm going to do is just to mark out this point like this, so I know that this point is meant to be for a corset loop. Okay, so now the loop just goes in here, and now that's what you have for your loop, and this is what you have for your dart. Okay, so this is basically what I have for the back pattern, and this is what I have for the front pattern of my corset that has bra cups. I do hope you found this tutorial very helpful. If you did, do not leave a like. Also subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye guys.